With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Welcome to another edition of the Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Marcus Katkin, joined with my co-host Matt Dugal. How's it going, Matt?
Not too bad. Pretty excited. The draft's all done. The season is quickly approaching.
That's for sure. A couple of housekeeping things we just wanted to go over before we jump into all the NFL madness from this weekend. We want to give a big shout out to Mike Neom. We had one of our writers, Ryan Michael, interview him a couple weeks ago going up to the NFL draft. And Mike landed himself on the Cleveland Browns as an undrafted free agent. Glad to see him find himself on a team, and I really hope he stays on the team and makes it all through the season this year. We're really pulling for him. Go check him out on Twitter at MikeNeom45. Another quick just housekeeping thing. If you haven't checked out FF Magic Man Micah James, I was a recent co-host on his Magic Formula podcast on iTunes. So definitely go and give that a listen. And a good guy, good follow at FF Magic Man on Twitter. Let's get on to the NFL draft here. We're gonna start off with some quarterbacks. The first, aside from Tavon Austin, I guess the first positional player to go that's going to hopefully be relevant in fantasy football this year. E.J. Manuel goes to the Buffalo Bills in the 16th pick. Matt, what do you think? You going to be taking him in any of your drafts this year?
I'm not going to be drafting him, but he's a guy I'm going to keep an eye on. He's behind a couple, veterans that aren't very good, but they are veterans. They've been in the league, and Cobb and Jackson there, guys that can help him preparing in the mental part of the game. But physically, Manuel's he's got the arm, he's got the ability. He's a big boy, but he can move. He's an exciting guy. When it comes to fantasy football, you kind of look for those kind of guys. If you've seen the last few years, those running quarterbacks kind of can change the game. So I'll keep an eye on him. Not necessarily somebody I'm drafting, certainly not, but definitely keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, I was watching some tape on him, and he definitely does like to run. His style of play reminded me a lot of Colin Kaepernick, just without the arm that Colin Kaepernick has. He throws some deadly passes, and E.J. Manuel definitely cannot make those passes, but definitely has the same running ability. So I think he will be relevant for fantasy football, probably more so in dynasty leagues and in a couple of years. This year, I probably see him coming in for Cobb, probably 6th, 7th, 8th week of the year, and then kind of taking over and things. So you're probably not going to be drafting him just because he isn't going to be the starter right off the bat. He's probably going to be a waiver wire claim 4th, 5th week of the year, sometime around then when you think that change might be coming. But Geno Smith, there's a guy who was also drafted in the second round by the Jets. He might be fantasy relevant this year because it's sounding like there's the potential that Mark Sanchez could get cut. I know we'll get to it later, but obviously this drafting led to the Tim Tebow cut earlier today. Geno Smith, though, could potentially be the Week 1 starter for the Jets.
I think Geno Smith's, if he's not the Week 1 starter for the Jets, they gotta.
He should be the Week 1 starter.
There's nowhere else to go there. There's no reason to keep trying the Sanchez project. And like you said, there's a good chance he's going to be out of there anyways. Give the kid the reins and see what he can do. It's not like there's any talent around him, but unfortunately, he's going to have to get started somewhere. For me, though, like last year, we had a couple quarterbacks coming in, Griffin, Luck. I even stayed away from them. It's tough for me to look at a rookie quarterback with the way you and I a lot of times do things, kind of letting the quarterbacks fall to us. There's so many good ones out there. Going after a rookie, for me, is scary. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Geno Smith, who's got a real good shot to be the starter, or even a guy like Andrew Luck last year, which maybe I was a little wrong on. He finished pretty well, but I'm going to stay away. There's plenty of quarterbacks out there.
See, I think Robert Griffin really changed my view on rookie quarterbacks last year. I mean, the Cam Newton thing, the first year that he was out, you're like, okay, yeah, rookie quarterbacks might be relevant. And then last year just really blew it open for me and just really made me understand, hey, these guys are for real. These rushing quarterbacks are coming into the league. It's taken a while for defenses to figure them out. This is something that they're really, they're really changing the game in fantasy football, and you got to be on the lookout for them. E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith, two guys that definitely can run with the ball. they'll be on my radar, but very, very low in the draft, just because out of the two, I think maybe Geno's a starter day one. But that's it. I mean, even the rest of this quarterback class, none of these guys are going to be a starter day one, that's for sure.
Right.
Mike Glennon, third-round pick to the Buccaneers. He's going to be a backup. I like Josh Freeman, I think, more than most people. I think he had a really good rookie season, a couple of mediocre seasons since then. But I think he's going to come around. He's got a couple of good receivers with Vincent Jackson. Mike Williams really came into his own again as the number 2 receiver. I really think he comes into his own again, and Glennon's a backup. What do you think? Anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, Shiano's already come out and said he's been picked to be the backup. Not even leaving it up for competition. So for me, I'm there's no reason to touch Mike Glennon. Freeman's a young guy too. It's not like they're drafting the quarterback for the future. Maybe I'll get a chance to see him. I mean, Freeman's young as it is, so back up here.
This pick just baffled the hell out of me. Just because Glennon to me wasn't even in my top 4 quarterbacks that should have been taken in this draft, and he was taken ahead of Nassib and Barkley,
right?
And then he went to a team that really wasn't as quarterback needy as the other teams. That's the other thing I just really didn't understand. I didn't really get that. I mean, obviously the Bucs know a lot more than I do, so I guess I can't get on them too much. Another pick that really just kind of surprised me was Matt Barkley to the Eagles. I definitely felt like if the Eagles were going to draft a quarterback, they were going to take one of the rushing guys to kind of fit into that Chip Kelly system. Instead, they go with a more pocket passer. Honestly, a guy that I think was probably in my top 2 quarterbacks in this class. I really liked what I saw from Barkley. Just surprised because I feel like he doesn't really fit the Chip Kelly system.
Well, a couple of years ago, Chip Kelly had a quarterback by the name, I'm pretty sure it was Darren Thomas. Played the full season, didn't even have 300 yards rushing. So the connection with a rushing quarterback and Chip Kelly isn't always necessarily the case. It might be his ideal situation, but he's a guy that can really adapt to whatever he's got.
But if that's your ideal situation,
right? Why
trade up to take a quarterback that isn't the rushing quarterback that would fit your system?
I think getting Barkley in the 4th round. I mean, he's a kid that was talked about as a possible. People were whispering about the 1st round. Get him the 4th round is.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a steal.
It's probably a value pick, I think, at that point.
Huge value pick. I guess I just don't understand quite the fit there. I mean, even Nick Foles. I mean, he's a decent pocket passer. If that's how you're going to go, stick with Foles. Use that pick on something else.
If I'm Foles right now, though, I'm probably shitting my pants. That's for sure.
Yeah, Foles has got to be the odd man out in that group. That's for sure. But speaking of more value picks, Ryan Nassib goes to the Giants in the 4th round. Great pickup for the Giants. Great, he's going to be a great backup for Eli. Hopefully, going to learn from Eli for a few years and maybe be his successor. Obviously, no fantasy value in redraft leagues this year. Deep dynasty leagues, maybe you hold on to him and hope that he learns for a few years under Manning, the same way Aaron Rodgers learned under Brett Favre. Of course, by no means is Eli Manning a Brett Favre, so let's get that out of the way right now. But hopefully, those few years of learning with Tom Coughlin, Eli Manning, deep dynasty leagues, 3-4 years down the road, maybe when Manning, hangs it up, he's the guy.
Yeah, Nassib, nothing to be talked about right now. The next one was Tyler Wilson going to the Oakland Raiders, 4th round, 112th overall. I mean, I guess it's a guy to keep an eye on around there. That friggin' organization is just so dysfunctional. Who the hell ever knows? But
such a mess.
Not really interested in Tyler Wilson. And then to finish off, Landry Jones going to Pittsburgh. That's Ben Roethlisberger's job.
Guy.
Yeah, another backup.
The thing with Tyler Wilson is, I mean, if you're drafting a quarterback in the 4th round like that, what does that say about Terrell Pryor?
Right.
That experiment's got to be over before it even started, which is too bad because I liked him. I liked what he could have brought to fantasy circles.
I think you're canning him a little too early. It's you got to bring in talent to make competition, and that could be all this is.
Well, where's he going to fit in? I mean, you got Matt Flynn, you got Tyler Wilson, you got Terrell Pryor.
3 quarterbacks.
One of those guys is going to be the 3rd stringer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's not going to.
I think it's going to be a competition.
It's not going to be the guy that they traded for. And it probably isn't going to be the guy that they just drafted. I mean, it just seems like he might be the odd man out. Obviously, a lot more quarterbacks taken in the draft. We're not going to go through every one of them because even getting into the 4th round of some of these quarterbacks, just not relevant for fantasy reasons. So let's just jump into the running backs here. First running back off the board kind of surprised people for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is the first time since 1963 that a running back hasn't been drafted in the first round. So that kind of surprised a lot of people. Really shows you how teams are staying away from that position and going to the committee approach and not putting too much emphasis in that. But number 37 overall, Giovanni Bernard, not the number one running back for a lot of people in their minds going into this draft. A lot of people had Eddie Lacy picked as the number one guy. Mm-hmm. But Bernard ends up on the Bengals. What do you think? Good fit?
I think for the Bengals, it's a great fit. He's a good change of pace guy. He's a quick guy, a little bit faster. They've already got kind of their bruiser, I guess you could say, type guy, and Ben Jarvis, who's more of just a straight ahead guy. So I can see why maybe they were going away from the Bell, the Eddie Lacy, those kind of guys, which are similar in the fact that they're going to put their head down and do some damage. So Bernard's kind of a nice, change of pace back for Cincinnati, and a guy that eventually I think has some talent and could take over that job.
Call me crazy, but I've never been a big... I live in New England. I watch the Patriots every week. I was never a big Ben Jarvis fan.
I agree, 100%.
And I think this is more of like a Ben Jarvis. Ben Jarvis by no means is a bad running back.
Right.
I've done a lot of mock drafts this year already, and he's ended up on more of my teams than I'd probably like, but he's been solid. But the problem is solid's not going to get you into the playoffs. Right. You need a game changer. Giovanni Bernard, I think, is as close to that game changer as you could probably get in this draft. I like the pick. I think he's going to get a decent amount of work this year. Second half of the year and definitely years ahead, he's going to be worth a lot more. Dynasty leagues, I got to think he's the first running back taken in Dynasty leagues. What do you think? You think any of those other guys are going to be?
Oh, man, for me, it's Eddie Lacy. I think he's going to step in and start from day one in Green Bay. I know they don't run the ball a ton, but I just, he's talented. I like guys like him. I just like guys that will, by the fourth quarter, you don't want to tackle them anymore because they've just been beating on you for the whole game.
Or you won't be tackling him because Jonathan Franklin will be in there.
Yeah,
either way.
I think I don't think Jonathan Franklin's in Eddie Lacy's class, but I mean they're going to be competition. And last year you probably would have said the same thing out of Pede and Richardson and St. Louis. Pede was drafted ahead of him. Richardson took him over. So who knows how this could end up? But for me, it's Eddie Lacy in Green Bay. When I saw that, I got real excited.
All right. Well, we're jumping ahead a little bit. Let's go back to these picks before Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy, obviously not a high on a lot of NFL teams' lists. Le'Veon Bell, Pittsburgh Steelers, second round, instant starter. Jonathan Dwyer, Isaac Redmond, obviously not the answers last year. Le'Veon Bell is going to just jump right into that starting role, probably get 15 carries a game would probably be my guess. Steelers don't run the ball crazy amount of times. Their number one running back. So the other two will be mixed in there, but definitely probably 15 carries a game seems pretty. You can lock that up for him. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say right around that 10 to 15 range. I still have some faith in Dwyer. He was banged up a lot last year, and he's a young guy. But Bell is a very good running back. It's going to be, I think, a little bit of a competition where Dwyer might get the start beginning of the season because of the fact that he's a veteran, but it's going to be a committee type thing, and Bell's definitely got the talent to eventually take over that job. But I'd like to see Dwyer stay healthy, see what he can do. I like the way he runs, but Bell is definitely a good player, and for me, he might be the best out of. Well, I mean, him or Lacy, I think, are going to have the biggest year out of the running backs this year for rookies. It really depends on what kind of opportunity they're going to get.
Yeah, and going next, Monte Ball, Denver Broncos. Talking about running back messes, Denver Broncos. That is just one huge mess. I mean, McGahee was the incumbent starter that did decent last year. Gets banged up a lot. Definitely comes out second half of every year with some sort of injury. But he's still there. I mean, he's still playing. Sean Moreno definitely filled in tremendously last year.
Right.
Really made me feel like he was going to be the guy moving forward, not Ronnie Hillman, because Hillman was having the problem with picking up pass blocking on third down. But, I mean, now you throw in a second-round pick into the mix. It baffles me. All of them are still on the roster. All of them will probably still be on the roster because of what their salary caps are this year. What a mess. I am staying away from all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, last year, like you said, Moreno was dead. I mean, and then all of a sudden he came out.
He's on the
He
practice
carried
squad.
some teams through the late part of the season. That guys that I know you picked him up, right? In our big league there, and,
That's right.
And he performed really well.
I think he had like 400-yard games in a row.
Hillman, you watch Hillman. He runs like a little water bug out there. He might not be, like you said, the blocking schemes. He's having trouble picking up the blitzes, but you got to figure he's going to pick those things up here over time. There's a lot of talent in that backfield, and like you said, who the hell's it going to be? Flip a coin. Obviously, if they're taking the guy in the second round, they might want him to be the guy.
On top of all that, too, how much are they going to pass it this year? Now that they just brought in Wes Welker, too,
Right.
There's just too many mouths to feed there. I mean, it's resembling the Patriots of old, where there's just so many mouths to feed. Who's going to be the fantasy relevant guy? And all these guys are going to fall to the 5th, 6th rounds and lower because you don't know which one it's going to be. One of them is going to finish, fairly high. One of these, especially with the receivers too, someone's going to finish in those top 3 rounds worth of production, but you just have no idea who it's going to be.
Right.
And in those, for me, in the 5th, 6th rounds, that type of thing, I'm not taking huge risks like that yet. I tend to save those for my later picks, 8th, 9th, 10th round and later.
One
but
thing to
definitely
think
some
too,
lottery tickets.
Preseason is really going to show us some things and what coaches might be thinking. Come the end of preseason when they have the game where the starters are going to be, and let's see who starts that last or that third preseason game with Manning out there. Is it going to be Ball? Is it going to be McGahee? Is it going to be Moreno? Who knows?
Yeah, it could. We've already touched on Lacey, so let's just skip over him to Michael here at the Seahawks. Christine Michael. Surprised because I thought they liked Robert Turbin. Everything seemed to go well for Robert Turbin last year. I thought he would be, the handcuff to Marshawn Lynch, but obviously spending a second-round pick on a running back says otherwise.
Michael, for me, watching him on film is the most for me, just the most talented back that's out there in this draft. The unfortunate situation is he's going to a place where Marshawn Lynch is firmly entrenched in a running back situation where he's just not really going to get the opportunity. Like you said, we thought they liked Turbin. There was a lot of talk of him preseason, very impressed with him. And then they go out and draft this kid in the second round. Michael was actually the number 1 recruit out of high school when he was coming out. And interestingly enough, Texas really makes some of the biggest recruiting area for running backs. So it shows you the kind of talent this kid had coming out. Performed really well in A&M. A little bit of an attitude problem. There's some reports out there, but I'm excited about him. It's unfortunate where he ended up being. Like you said, a big thing with this is positional situation, and he's not going to get the ball there.
Yeah.
Not with Lynch.
Like I said in the Magic Formula podcast earlier this week, for me, any rookie that you're thinking about drafting, it's all about opportunity and less about skill. Dynasty leagues, all about skill, less about opportunity. But in the short term here, definitely you got to look at that. You got to look at that opportunity, and he's not going to have the opportunity this year. That's for sure.
Right.
Niall Davis goes to the Kansas City Chiefs in the 3rd round. Let's just skip over that. It's Jamal Charles' world, and that's all it's going to be out there.
Yeah, fun little tidbit we got with Niall Davis, though. I mentioned earlier, Michael, when he came out as a senior, he was the number 1 recruit. Niall Davis was number 3 in all of Texas. He's a real good player. Just had a lot of injuries his junior year. His senior year, he missed it. But like you said, Charles is there. But Charles is a guy that actually will perform, I think, a little better when he gets some change up, when the backup gets some work, as you saw when Thomas Jones was around. So, there could be a little bit of value there. Maybe a nice handcuff. We'll see how the preseason goes. But also, a big question with him, Niles Davis, is can he even stay healthy?
Speaking of Charles, I got to ask you. You got the 3rd overall pick in the NFL in the fantasy drafts this year.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you taking? Adrian Peterson goes 1, Foster goes 2.
Yeah.
Who's your 3rd pick?
The way you preface this question, I'm going to assume that you're going to take Jamal Charles.
I'm taking Jamal Charles, and I'm not thinking twice.
Who am I going to take number 3 overall?
Well, you think about that. Why I would take Charles?
Yep.
The only reason he has been not a top 5 back, or a guy that you wouldn't normally consider top 3, he wouldn't get the touchdowns, and he wasn't going to get all the usage. And I think that totally changes this year. Peyton Hillis is gone. There's no solid backup in back of him. I think he is going to get the touchdowns. He is going to get a ton of carries this year, tons of touches. he's going to return back to that top 5 back he was a few years ago with Thomas Jones.
Andy Reid being there kind of scares me on Charles a little bit. A lot of times over the years I've been saying, why aren't they feeding McCoy the ball more in Philly? So that does scare me a little bit with Jamal.
But Reid in Philly, he also liked to do his little dump-off passes to McCoy.
Yeah.
McCoy had those 80 reception
No, I
years.
agree. Yeah, he definitely...
Jamal Charles getting the ball out of the backfield on a pass, he could be more dangerous that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I couldn't. I wouldn't be crazy.
I'm not pushing
to
you
go with
towards
that.
Charles. I'm not pushing you towards Charles.
I think
I want to know who your guy is. Who was your guy, 3rd pick overall?
You might have pushed me to Charles. I mean, oh my God, it's tough.
There's so many questions I feel with that 3rd pick. I know Doug Martin is the consensus 3rd pick. I am just not a believer. He had so many yards and so many touchdowns in one game last year. I think he had like 25% of his yards and like 20% of his touchdowns in one game. That's not something that's going to keep reoccurring. I don't see it happening over and over again. Take the rest of his numbers. Did he still do well? Yes, but for some reason I just don't believe in him. I mean, call it a gut call it whatever you want, because I really don't have too many numbers to back it up. I don't like him for some reason this year. I'm staying away from him. The other guys you're talking about,
well,
maybe
just to be different, I'll go with McCoy. I'm going to stick with McCoy. Last year he proved me wrong, but I am excited about what they're going to be doing there in Philly this year.
I do like
Kelly.
I do like
I think
McCoy a lot.
would be my number 3, just to be different from you. I'd flip a coin. I'd be happy if I got either one of those guys, to be honest.
Yeah, you're taking both those guys over Trent Richardson then?
Yeah,
I
but
like
Trent
a lot.
was one guy I was going to bring up. The biggest thing with him is I just need to see improvement out of that team. Like go back a few years when Steven Jackson was really in his prime, which we've talked about. I still love him, but he was the kind of guy, he'd get you 90 yards, he'd get you 100 yards every day,
no touchdowns
every week, but he'd not score because the team was terrible. And I know Richardson scored touchdowns last year, but if the team is bad, I like to stay away from bad teams, good players that early.
Yeah, it's just like what I was saying earlier with opportunity. He's not going to get the touchdown opportunity.
Talent-wise, though, I love watching him run the ball. He makes me soar on Monday mornings.
He is amazing. All right, we're getting away from the draft here. Let's get back to this.
Yeah.
Jonathan Franklin to the Packers. We touched on Lacey.
Yeah.
They take another guy in the 4th round who's very, very good. Kind of fell a little bit in the draft. I think this just muddles the backfield that much more for me. I mean, I get Lacey's that big bruiser type that's going to probably get the goal line, plunges. But this is another backfield where you don't know which guy it is. And even if you do, they're not going to run the ball a ton. They like to pass the ball as well. And,
right.
and why wouldn't you? I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he just signed for a nice big extension too. Let him throw the ball. He is your franchise. But now you got kind of like this committee thing that they look to have going. I'm staying away from both these guys again.
Yeah, I do believe it's going to be Lacey, but it's just pure gut call. So we'll see how the preseason goes. We'll finish it off with Marcus Lattimore going to the San Francisco 49ers.
I love this one.
131st overall. Kind of funny they went with Lattimore. It's a little bit similar to when Gore was coming out of college. Blew up his knee in the national championship game, and they still took the chance on him.
I love this one. I know he's going to be boom or bust, and I'm okay with that. Especially, I'm sure the 49ers are too. They picked him. But when you consider all the picks that the 49ers had, they're the type of team that could take the chance on him. But can you imagine that pistol offense? Colin Kaepernick, LaMichael James on one side and Marcus Lattimore on the other, and a 2 RB set. Oh my God, that is going to cause such nightmares for defenses. I am excited for that.
I love his heart. I love his competitiveness. And I really hope he comes back better than ever. It's just, boy, that knee injury last year.
It was brutal. It was
tough
to watch.
I had to show everybody I knew like 15 times because it was just his leg looked like when I used to play with the little Gumby toys when I was little, and you could do whatever you wanted to him. It was so disgusting.
Exactly.
But Marcus, I hope you're working hard. I know you are, and come back stronger than ever. So we'll move on to the wide receivers. My favorite one, Tavon Austin.
He was everybody's favorite one, I feel.
Yeah, that's true.
He flew up.
He did go 8th overall, so it's not like I'm proclaiming anything special here. But going to the Rams, huge for the Rams. They finally got a guy that Bradford can really count on. I think this kid's going to be Rookie of the Year. He does it all out there. But what do you think, Marcus?
I am not as big on him as everybody else in the world is. I'm not getting it. I think he's too small to play in the NFL. I think he's going to take some pops by some linebackers that are going to make him, do the little T-Rex arms in the middle of the field. He is going to short arm stuff after he takes that first pop from somebody like Patrick Willis. I'm just his run after the catch and everything. He does look amazing. He is fast. He finds those open lanes and he gets to them. But I think those first couple of weeks of getting knocked on his ass, he is going to just realize, oh shit, this is not college anymore. I'm playing with some real big boys, and he's going to start short arming some stuff, and he's going to be all speed and a little guy. I don't feel it.
I'm taking him. I'm going to go into the season if Tavon Austin was my, I'll say, number 2 receiver.
Wow.
If I let that happen on accident, it happens to be he's my number 2. I'm going to be slightly confident. I guess I'd say. I really see some big things for him this year, and obviously they do as well. That's why they took him 8th overall. There's no one else there to compete with. Maybe they got Cook. He's never produced. There's nothing else there.
So you're going to put him as a top 20 or 25 wide receiver this year?
Yeah.
I will put $5 on that.
Yeah,
I will put $5 saying
that
that he will not be a top. I'll even give you 25 that he will not be a top 25 wide receiver next year.
Can we really bet? I don't think we can bet cash though, right? We got to bet something else.
This is our podcast. We can do whatever we damn want.
All right, fine.
All right, I am betting $5. The audience has heard it. That's a bet. Put it on the board.
Tavon
there
Austin
it is.
will be a top 25 wide receiver this year.
No way.
All right.
Moving
on.
DeAndre Hopkins,
Get mad at
Houston
you.
Texans, 27th overall. I really, really like this pick. I know the Texans don't throw the ball a lot, but I think this is the perfect guy. He's gonna, Andre Johnson's gonna be the guy that takes all the cornerbacks with him. There's gonna be less attention to DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, to me, was probably my number 1 wide receiver on this list. I think he's gonna do great things opposite Andre Johnson. Like I said, I know they don't throw the ball a lot, but I think redraft leagues, he's going to be solid this year, not outstanding.
Yep.
Dynasty leagues, he's going to be a top pick for me because I think as soon as Andre Johnson's gone, he is almost going to fill that Andre Johnson role. Not quite Andre Johnson production because I don't think he's that good, but I think when Andre Johnson's gone, he's going to be a consistent 1,300 yard season guy with 6 to 8 touchdowns.
I think this is like an exact correlation to Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. Marvin was just getting to the end of his career, still could produce. Reggie Wayne came in. There was that few years there of overlap, and then Reggie Wayne took over. Similar to what we're going to see here. Obviously,
Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt?
Yep. Obviously, though, the passing situations for both those scenarios we just brought up were different. Those teams really focused on throwing the ball. And you could almost go to Reggie Wayne early and actually, kind of rely on him in your fantasy team. But with DeAndre, like you said, these guys run the football. That's what they do. Johnson is still going to be the man. But I like it. I think you're right. Now, he is a very talented player, and I think it's just perfect to take over. It's just this right time now where he's going to be mentored by one of the best. I'm excited for him. Maybe not so much this year, but even into next year, I think we could start seeing some big things with him.
Next up, Cordell Patterson. I'm a big Patriots fan. Matt's a huge Vikings fan. I hate this for my Patriots. Matt's loving this for his Vikings.
Oh yeah,
Matt, this is you got you written all over it. You take the lead on this one. You know all about this guy.
He is 1 year college football, so it's really tough to get a real good idea what he's going to do. But if you just watch film on him, the start-stop capability, the quickness, the vision. I mean, he makes moves where it's like he was looking straight ahead. How did he? It's just nuts. His quickness, his speed. He's got size. I don't know if he's polished as far as a route runner and those kind of things. I'm pretty sure that's something he's going to have to really work on. But he's going to step in. He's going to get those bubble screens. He's going to get a lot of that Percy Harvin type offense that the Vikings got last year for him. He's going to step right in day one and be a kick return, punt returner. He's going to be their biggest playmaker. Obviously we've got Adrian Peterson, but outside of him, he's going to be their biggest playmaker from day one.
More than Jennings?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, big play guy. Like Jennings is going to be clearly our best receiver, but as far as the guy that you give him the ball and can go to the house on any single given play, there's nobody on the Vikings that has that kind of breakout ability. And actually, there's really not many guys out there that have the kind of breakout ability he has. Just please go watch a 10-minute highlight on YouTube, and you'll agree with me on this. This guy, I know, Marcus, you watched it with me. It's nuts. The way he can make people miss is awesome.
He has great vision. He has great cutting ability. I just think it's too bad he's not going to have a good wide receiver until next year when the Vikings draft one. All right, so Justin Hunter up next, Tennessee Titans. This was another confusing pick, second-round pick. I thought they had all the wide receivers that they needed, and then they go out and draft another one.
Right.
I mean, Kenny Britt has been an elite guy when healthy, and I know that's the key thing, when healthy. But even Kendall Wright last year, who I believe was a first-round pick, he really came on last year and caught a lot of passes. So to go out and spend another high pick on another wide receiver, I'm just not sure what Tennessee's doing, other than they're thinking, let's get weapons around Jake Locker.
Right.
But if that was the case, you wouldn't have let Jared Cook go, because now your tight end's gone. So I don't quite understand what it is they're trying to do in Tennessee.
I think you're 100% correct. They're trying to get weapons around Locker. They want to find out if Locker is their man for the future, and this is kind of going to be his last chance at it, I think. Getting three wide receivers out there next to him that have some real good ability isn't going to hurt his cause. Britt, by all accounts, are saying he's coming back completely healthy this year. Is he still a punk? Who knows? Is he going to be able to stay on the field? Who knows? So getting a little bit of depth isn't the worst idea when you're talking about relying on a guy like Kenny Britt. You know,
I gotta say, I'm going to get away from the wide receivers here a little bit, but I know we're talking about Tennessee Titans, and I just got to say, I think one of the best things that I like about the Titans this year is going to be Chris Johnson. And I know it sounds crazy because of how bad he was last year, but I think it was a lot of offensive line troubles. And since we're speaking about the draft, they did draft Chance Warmack as a guard, disputably one of the top guards in the draft. They drafted a center. They also went out and got Levitri, the offensive tackle, in free agency. So they are building that offensive line for him.
Right.
I think spending two high picks and one really top priority free agent on offensive line really shows the focus that they're putting into that offensive line this year to make it better for him. Again, I know this is off topic from the wide receivers, but I really have big things for him this year. I think he is going to be a top probably 7 to 10 running back next year.
Oh, easy, yeah.
And I'm happy to take him mid-second round where he's been going. Yep. I'm going to take that all day, every day. But getting back to the wide receivers here. Next up, Robert Woods, Buffalo Bills, second-round pick. Again, here's another situation of putting weapons around your franchise guy. You go out and spend a first-round pick on E.J. Manuel. You want to make sure he's got the receivers to throw to. He's got Stevie Johnson, I should say. Got Robert Woods now. I guess that kind of puts the hush a little bit on T.J. Graham in dynasty leagues. But Robert Woods, Buffalo Bills, what do you think, Matt?
I like the pick. The guy produced in college. They really didn't have a ton of talent back there, and like you said, they took a Manuel with the 16th pick in the draft. They want to make sure that they made the right decision with him, get him some weapons so he's not stuck in a situation like Sanchez where he was throwing to guys slightly better than you and I.
Yeah. Speaking of, again, getting weapons, Patriots up next. Obviously, they traded, like we said earlier, with your Vikings, trading down from that first-round pick to get a second, third, and fourth. And I hated it because it reminded me of a few years ago when the Patriots needed a running back. Everybody knew they needed a running back. Mark Ingram was available on the board, and they traded down with the Saints, only to draft Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen later.
Yeah.
Are the sum of two people better than one? I don't think so. I think you always go with the elite guy or the stud guy that's coming out. I think the same situation happened here. I think Cordero Patterson is going to be much, much better than Aaron Dobson, who the Patriots picked in the second round. His highlight film did look great, but to me, Cordero Patterson is going to be much, much better than Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce, another wide receiver they took in the fourth round. 2 of those 3 picks that they got. Well, 2 of the 4 picks, but let's throw out the 7th round pick because who cares about that one? But I can't see Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce even remotely coming out to what Cordero Patterson's going to be. I'm really disappointed in the Patriots. I understand the value they got in getting all those picks, but it just shows again you had the chance to take one of the top guys at the position that you needed, and you pass on him for 2 lesser people. And I didn't get it back then a couple of years ago with the Mark Ingram thing, and I don't get it now.
Sometimes Belichick, I think he's he thinks he's smarter than he is, or he's too smart for himself, or it's just interesting. Maybe he just saw that catch in the back corner of the end zone where Dobson caught that one-handed, backhanded grab and just thought, all right, I got to get this kid. But
Belichick's a genius,
that was an early pick, though. I mean, Dobson was a little bit of a reach here in the second round.
We keep saying that Belichick's a genius, but I think he's a mad genius. I think it's one of those things where, we all remember the great picks he has, and we all forget about those bad picks he has. Like the safety last year, he drafted in the second round that on everybody else's board was a seventh-round guy. I mean, stuff like that. Anybody talking about him now? No. You want to know why? Because he was a seventh-round guy that you took in the second round.
Yeah.
He didn't turn out. I don't get it. I mean, I hate what he's done with the receivers this year.
But what does Dobson mean for you when we're talking fantasy? Is this a kid that can come in and produce? I mean,
he's going to be the starter. I mean, he has to be because they don't have anybody else right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the projected starter right now. Him and Amendola as the wide receivers. They still got the 2 tight end sets with Gronkowski and Hernandez. So it's going to sound crazy, but I think at best he's the 5th receiving option because I think he's going to be the receiving option after the running back, after the third down back that, whoever played, it sounds like it's going to be Shane Vereen in that Danny Woodhead role that's going to have, 30, 40 catches out of the backfield. I'm just staying away. I love Tom Brady. I love what he does for all those receivers, but this is another one I'm staying away from. Terrence Williams, 3rd round pick, Dallas Cowboys. Depth guy. I mean, you got Dez, you got Miles Austin, Jason Witten's still there. There's nothing to talk about here.
Yeah, keep an eye on him. I mean, you never know when either one of those two are going to stay healthy. A lot of injury problems there out of Bryant and Austin and those hammies of his. So I like his talent. Terrence Williams is definitely a stud, but like you said, yeah, he's at least 3rd on the depth chart. And most likely, as a rookie coming out of the 3rd round, going to have to work up to get to that 3rd on the depth chart situation. So, not really a guy I'm looking for. Aaron Dobson is a guy I'm going to keep an eye on. I just want to see how the preseason goes. Brady can make people look even better. So, for me, I'm going to keep an eye on Dobson for sure. Not really just kind of throw him to the side. They liked him. They took him in the 2nd round. So, I mean, there's going to be something there. Keenan Allen going to San Diego Chargers, 3rd round, 76th overall. I like this guy.
I love it.
Yeah, he might be we talk a lot about, like we've been talking about, the situation that these receivers are coming into. There's really nobody there. They have some nice work out of, help me out. God, I had him on my team.
Denario?
Yeah, Denario.
How do you forget Denario Alexander?
Terrible.
Are you kidding?
I'm always all over him. So yeah, Denario comes in, produces really well at the end of the season. But I like this idea here of Keenan Allen being a guy that I'm really going to put a star next to, see how the preseason goes, and see what kind of opportunity he gets.
I love everything about this. Keenan Allen was on everybody's board as a 1st round pick.
Yeah.
Somehow falls to the 3rd round. Somehow falls to a team that needs wide receivers. Aside from Denario Alexander last year, had nobody.
Right.
Robert Meacham, no. Malcolm Floyd, no. Antonio Gates, way past his prime. I think this is the perfect fit for him. This is a talented receiver that needed to go to a team that needs receivers, and he did. Going back to Denario Alexander, he is a guy that I love this year. He is one of those guys that I have in my top breakout wide receivers for this year. Second half of last year, when Denario Alexander finally started playing some games for the Chargers, only 2 guys had more touchdowns than him last year during the span he was with the Chargers. Do you know who those 2 guys were?
No.
Des Bryant and Eric Decker. That's it. 2 guys. 2 guys.
Both pretty good football players.
You want to talk about good football players? Pro Football Focus puts out this fantasy points per snap played stat, where they tell you how many fantasy points did somebody score last year divided by how many snaps they played, so you can actually see how well they're performing. Mm-hmm. You can see people out there that have great fantasy totals, but it's because they played a lot. It wasn't relevant of how they actually played in the games. Denario Alexander last year had a higher points per snap than Calvin Johnson and A.J. Green. That's got to tell you something. He plays a full season. I mean, he is going to be amazing next year. I think the reason why he was amazing last year was because he is the exact same size as Phillip Rivers' old target, Vincent Jackson. Both 6'5" guys. DX 15 pounds lighter, so a little bit lighter, but I think he just came right in, filled in that Vincent Jackson role. Ironically, didn't get the deep passes that Vincent Jackson normally does. So I think, if they work on that this offseason, I think DX is going to be a huge guy in fantasy this year. Top 15, top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
And I think Keenan Allen is going to help him even more because Keenan Allen's going to take away some of that focus because they now have that second threat that they needed. And like I said, Keenan Allen, I love his skills, and I love that he fell to a team that needed a wide receiver, so he'll be relevant this year.
Well, hold on. Out of these, now that was the 8th one we've gone over today, wide receivers. Would you agree with me saying that you think obviously, I'm a big fan of Tavon Austin. I'm not going to include him on this, but you may. Is he going to be the number one wide receiver for rookies this year? Looking right now, what you know about their situation.
The consensus is going to be yes. I would be tempted to take Keenan Allen. I know value-wise you can take Keenan Allen a lot later. If we were making a bet on it and you were going to give me Keenan Allen plus 15 fantasy points for the season,
so it's pretty
against Tavon Austin, I would take Keenan Allen and 15 points.
See, I'm at the point where I was saying just take Tavon out of the situation. Who else would you take? So that shows you we're a little bit different on that, but you're big on Terrence Williams. I am too. I mean, I have him number 2. So
I think Keenan Allen's going to get the playing time. I think Tavon Austin is going to get hurt at some point this year and miss at least a couple of games. I think out of this group, this year only, Keenan Allen and maybe Cordero Patterson, depending on if Ponder really steps up his game this year. But I love Keenan Allen this year. I think it's a perfect situation for him, and I think he has the skills to get it done. Moving on, though, again, Buffalo Bills adding more wide receivers. 3rd-round pick of Marquise Goodwin. Speedy little guy, kind of reminiscent of Tavon Austin, but obviously not nearly as talented. Again, they're adding weapons around E.J. Manuel. More reason why I'm so happy that in one of my dynasty leagues is based off of players that you have 2 teams and you get the players those 2 teams picked. I have E.J. Manuel already because I had that draft pick for the Bills. So I'm just loving it for E.J. Manuel because they're loading up on receivers around him. They're giving him that opportunity to excel. Marquise Goodwin, not too good on him in particular. I just love the sense that the Bills are doing everything they can to make E.J. Manuel succeed.
Goodwin's just a slot guy. Maybe some punt returns, extremely fast. I think he had the fastest 40 in the draft.
4.25 him and Tavon Austin.
Yeah. So in that regard, he's definitely going to be a big weapon out there as far as just one of those home run hitters, but certainly not going to be the guy on the outside like a Robert Woods would be. I see him as a number 3, slot type guy. So nothing I'm really looking at in fantasy football, and really probably nobody in Buffalo in the wide receiver regard. Obviously, yeah, I'm looking at Stevie Johnson, but later, when they're coming in with a rookie quarterback, it's going to be a rough situation, I think, for a little bit. I'm going to stay away from any of the Bills wide receivers, regardless of who you're looking at, unless it's maybe Stevie Johnson and I'm getting them late as a steal. But Marcus Wheaton finishes off what we're going to be talking about for wide receivers. He goes to the Steelers, 3rd round, 79th overall. A good situation here for a rookie. They've lost
Mike
Wallace, and he's got a chance to fill a role there. He's going to come in, behind Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, and I think Sanders is gone next year, and I think the Steelers know that. They know that the Patriots want him. So I think Sanders is gone next year, and I think this is more depth for the future. I think no fantasy relevance this year, but it will be probably next year and beyond.
Yep.
So moving on to tight ends, Tyler Eifert, Cincinnati Bengals, the only 1st-round tight end taken. This is another pick I didn't quite understand. They got Jermaine Gresham. I understand you're looking for receivers for Andy Dalton, but Tyler Eifert, he fell a lot. There was a lot of talks of him going a lot higher, like to 13 to the Jets. So I understand the value there, but with Jermaine Gresham, you have the tight end you need. I don't quite understand this.
Maybe they're trying to be the Patriots. I don't know. I mean, I'm not I'm not drafting Tyler Eifert. Maybe this hurts Gresham, though. Definitely, I would say. It's not a whole lot of fantasy relevance here.
See, I think it will. I think he's going to catch enough that he could be a low-end fantasy one.
Why do you say that? I mean, Gresham was a low-end fantasy one. Now you think there's going to be a low end out of the guy they just drafted?
Yeah, I mean, they both...
They're going to eat into each other, and neither one of them are going to be relevant, I think.
Are they, though? Are they going to eat into each other? Because who's the second wide receiver after A.J. Green? Name a Bengals wide receiver after A.J. Green.
Mohamed Sanu.
Okay. Name one that's not going to be hurt for half of the year.
Lavelle Hawkins. No, Hawkins, right?
Yeah, Andrew Hawkins.
Hawkins.
Good try, though.
Lavelle used to be.
Yeah, exactly my point. You can't name a Bengals wide receiver. You just can't. Andy Dalton has been progressing. He has been doing well. They needed more receiving, more receiving options for him. I think this moves him to a 2 tight end set. I think this may even show more towards Giovanni Bernard as well, because now you're going to have two tight ends up front on the line. You're going to have 7 guys blocking for your running back potentially. Gives another receiving option to Dalton, but again, I didn't see this as a position of need for them. So I didn't quite get that.
You can invite Tyler over to your fantasy football team if you want, but him and I aren't going to be hanging out at all this year. I'm whatever. For me, not a big deal here. Good player, but not a big deal when we're talking fantasy football.
Another one that I didn't get as well. Zach Ertz, 2nd round pick to the Eagles, high 2nd round pick. I think he was like the 35th pick overall, but I think the 3rd pick of the 2nd round. This is where everybody thought the Eagles were going to take their quarterback, and very easily could have. I mean, as we later found out, they could also wait a long time to get the quarterback they wanted to. So good for them. They obviously knew this draft board a lot better than a lot of other people. But Zach Ertz, just surprising pick from the Eagles for them to go with a tight end here. What do you think? Still, you're just like, whatever, tight ends, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I thought this was definitely going to be Geno when the pick came around. A little bit of a mobile quarterback. You know how Chip Kelly likes those. But, again, another tight end. There's a ton of them that aren't as good as Gronkowski and Graham, and I don't care what their name is.
And they still have Selleck. So I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't really understand the need or the fit here. Obviously, with a new coach, you're going to have a different offensive scheme. So who knows? Maybe this is more 2 tight end sets.
This whole tight end segment is a bunch of shit for me. My God, it's a terrible waste of time.
Well, here's the thing. The next tight end on here, Gavin Escobar, Dallas Cowboys. Another guy that, if you listen to Jerry Jones, which I think we've all learned over the years to stop listening to Jerry Jones.
Right.
But if you do still listen to him, Jerry Jones loves this guy, sees this guy as a great receiving tight end. Jason Witten's still there, not going anywhere. So maybe they point to a 2 tight end set thing. Maybe this is all 3 of these teams are just, let's follow the Patriots lead and I'll do 2 tight ends. Gavin Escobar, I mean, he's definitely one that's not on my fantasy radar. Jason Witten is it for that team. To be quite honest, if you don't get Rob Gronkowski or Jimmy Graham, maybe Aaron Hernandez, I'm waiting till my 3rd to last pick in the draft to take a tight end. Obviously, my last 2 picks being my defense and my kicker.
Yep.
But I think if you don't get Gronkowski or Graham, you're waiting on the rest of them. Like I said, Hernandez may be the only outlier, but the rest of them just fall in this group of meh. That I is somebody going to break out of it? Yes, of course there is, but we don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah, the next guy we're going to talk about, Vance McDonald, San Francisco 49ers. Is Delaney Walker still there?
Nope, he moved on.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I guess they have a need in that regard, but the most exciting thing I had for him coming up was that song, Vans Make a Dance. Who cares? That's about all we got to go with him. Let's stop talking about all these tight ends for now.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you want to bring up the next 2, go ahead.
No, I mean, Travis Kelce, Kansas City Chiefs, 3rd round. Jordan Reed, Redskins, 3rd round.
That one might be interesting.
Fred Davis is back.
Yeah, but he smokes a lot of weed. Is he really going to be able to stay out of the suspension program this year, the drug program this year?
Hi, Mikel LaShore.
Yeah, no kidding. Right?
I mean, we're
Hopefully
going to talk
those
about
2 weren't hanging out this off season, but
All right.
Jordan Reed, maybe just keep an eye on him, but really nothing going on there.
Meh.
The next thing, though, the trade with Chris Ivory going to the Jets for a 4th-round pick. That's going to be interesting. I really like him. Kid's averaged 5.1 yards per carry over his career. Yes, he's had a lot of injury concerns, and he's always been, 4th, 5th, whatever the hell he's been on the depth chart in New Orleans. But I like the way he runs, and I think he can be a really good player if a coach just believes in him, gives the chance, and he can stay healthy. Goodson's there, so it's going to be interesting to see how they split that up. I think
Bilal Powell. I mean, Bilal Powell's still there. That's another running back mess that I am just. I have Bilal Powell in a couple of my dynasty leagues because I thought he might be the guy after Sean Green left. But they bring in Goodson, they bring in Chris Ivory. Obviously, Ivory is the best one of the bunch.
Yeah.
But I still don't see him getting it done. I don't see him being a top 25 running back.
Probably not, but he's a guy that I'm gonna look to late in the draft, and I think I'm gonna have him on some of my teams this year just because he's a guy you could get that 1,000-yard running back out of him just because of him getting the work.
Yeah, Sean Green's definitely showed us that over the years.
Yeah, exactly.
1,000-yard back at just being the guy.
Yep.
Mediocre the guy back. Speaking of trades, LeGarrette Blount acquired by the Patriots for Jeff Demps in a 7th-round pick. And, I really like, as a Patriots fan, I really like this. I think everybody forgets that LeGarrette Blount, despite being an undrafted free agent, did come into the Buccaneers and did have a 1,000-yard rushing season for them. Obviously, the next year, they must have saw something in Blount to draft Doug Martin and have Doug Martin completely take over for him. But I liked what he brought to the Bucs. He was obviously that bruiser. Didn't obviously catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. Doesn't have that skill set. So from that point of view, I'm not sure how well that fits into the Patriots system because when he comes into the game, defenses are going to key on him. They're going to know, yep, he's coming in to run. He's definitely not coming in to pass. So from that perspective, I don't quite understand it. But I like the fact that the Patriots were able to get him for Jeff Demps, who was going to be nobody to them, basically just a return man that became unneeded baggage once they got Leon Washington in a 7th-round pick. Which 7th-round picks are throwaway picks. 9 times out of 10 those guys are getting cut anyway. So I like that they got him. Fantasy relevance. What do you think, Matt? You think he has any fantasy relevance this year?
I think I usually like to stay away from the Pats because you can never guess who it's going to be from week to week. I think he's a nice change of pace if they're looking for like the Vereen Blount.
He's a bruiser.
Yeah, but I just stay away from New England because Belichick is crazy, and I can never really guess which back is going to be featured on any particular week. A lot of times it has to do with what their offensive game plan is going to be that week, and really you don't know that. You can look to figure that out by what they're facing, what they do well, what that team defends well, but it's a lot of times too much of a guess to figure out who's going to be the guy there. So I don't think I'll touch LeGarrette, although as the preseason goes on, again, like all these things, you really start to figure stuff out, and it's a situation I'm going to keep an eye on for sure.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if his role is just going to be that touchdown vulture, plunge into the end zone type guy.
Yeah, it very well could be, and then even guys like that have some value. So
yeah, Michael Turner last year showed us that he was that plotter, that guy that didn't have many yards but had a touchdown every week, which made him relevant. So one last trade, Devon Bess traded to the Browns. The strange thing about this is the compensation is still being worked out. So I think that tells you all you need to know about Devon Bess and his fantasy value. For a team to trade him away and go, you know what? Let's just figure that out later.
Yeah.
Let's not even worry about that now. Let's just figure that out later.
Poor Devon Bess.
That's got to tell you something.
What did he do wrong in Miami to get treated like that? But yeah, who cares about him? And Tim Tebow's cut. Woo! You know what? It's funny. Why am I saying that? He's a guy that, when he got in, he produces in fantasy football. Again,
he ran just enough to be relevant.
Yeah. So we'll see where he ends up.
Too bad for all those people that went out and bought those Tim Tebow number 7 Jets jerseys, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's just what a waste. That'll be a collector's item.
He's gonna have to, I think he'll end up somewhere. Although I was gonna say he's a good locker room presence, although the sideshow that follows him everywhere isn't really a good locker room presence. What I'm thinking is just his work ethic, and he's a great teammate, but he brings so much baggage through the media wherever he goes. And yes, last year was New York.
He doesn't want the media.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. He does everything right. It's just the media won't leave him alone for some reason.
The funny thing is, I read that a couple of teams actually inquired to the Jets about trading for him, but they wanted to convert him to a tight end. And Tebow did not want to be a tight end.
Right.
And so that's ultimately why he was cut.
Ultimately,
He's got to change his position some way to be relevant in the NFL. To get playing time in the NFL and be relevant, he's got to either become a huge running back, fullback type guy, or a tight end. That's the only way he's going to be relevant in the NFL ever again.
I could see maybe some outside linebacker out of Timmy Teeb. Linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, there's some defense he could play. That's for sure.
He could definitely. He's a football player, but not a quarterback.
Yeah, he's not. He's definitely not a quarterback. So I mean, that pretty much that ends the show. I think, Matt. What do you think? You got anything else?
We'll throw out the Duran Carter just because I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. It's pretty interesting, and even Joe Montana's son. They're getting these favors, I guess you could say. Carter was actually a kid who played as a true freshman at Ohio State University, had 13 catches as a true freshman. He's got size. He's got the bloodline. His dad had the greatest hands in the history of the NFL. We'll see what happens. Most likely going to be cut. And then Montana's kid was just like, hey, Joe, we'll help you out. You did some things for us. Bring him on in.
Just a few things.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that's about it.
All right. Well, make sure you follow me. I'm at Marcus Katkin on Twitter. And follow Matt at Matt Dugal.
Yeah, but follow Marcus.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, not that Matt needs the help, guys. But with that, we're out.
See ya.